this one's for you. So
Yes.
basically, in this
Ooh.
podcast again, Grant was on this train. I think he's one of the first guys I heard who was on it. But Pitts at 3, and McVay kind of hinted at, he's like, I didn't think it was out of the realm of possibility that Kyle Pitts went 3. He said they'd won with Jimmy, that his play was not the problem. It was just whether he was healthy or not, and that maybe they could mimic sort of what the Patriots had done with Gronk and Hernandez, and if they had Kittle and Pitts, that would be possibly even better. I'm not going to say it would be better, but it could be better, more potential maybe. And so McVay basically said he didn't think it was out of the realm of the possibility that the Niners took him at 3, and then Peter Schrager said he had sources within the Falcons saying they were concerned if Pitts would actually get to them at 4. So there's 2 different people that really believed Pitts could have been a possibility at 3. Grant's thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he even said, like, you're such a visionary, I wouldn't put it past you.
Yeah.
It's the kind of guy you would like. And I was like, man, these are all the things I thought. So the logic checked out, and Sean McVay was on my side. I felt vindicated because I did a whole Sports Illustrated mock draft with all the publishers who do the team sites. And I had the 3rd pick, and I picked Kyle Pitts, and everyone flipped out. They're like, you're ruining this. You can't do – please. They like – everyone objected and they wouldn't go forward, and I had to go back. I was like, all right, man, Mac Jones, whatever. This was like a month before. I got vetoed, and I'm glad that Sean McVay was on my side. I do think that the reason I thought it was a good pick was not because I believe in Jimmy Garoppolo, it was more because I believe in Josh Rosen. I felt like if you put Kyle Pitts and Kittle and Ayuk and Debo and Raheem Mostert on the same team, that like really, I mean, you could put 50 quarterbacks on this team. Right? You could put Kyle Shanahan at quarterback because he's throwing dimes out here these days. So yeah, I'm glad Sean McVay felt the same way.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the Sports Illustrated mock draft because I actually talked to you about 5 minutes after that mock draft, and you were salty that they were so upset with you that they just turned you down. Like, there's no way it can be pitched. Like, Graham, you're just ruining this. Like, you said those exact words to me, so I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to bring it up. I thought it was really interesting that he said that he thought Pitts was a possibility. And he not only said that, he said, looking at your face, you also considered it too, to Shanahan. And obviously we're listening to the podcast, so we don't see Shanahan's facial expression, but that's what McVay's next sentence was that. Thought that was really interesting. At the end of the day, do I think they really considered Pitts? Probably not that seriously, because giving up that much a month before the draft for a tight end, that is very questionable. Giving it up for a quarterback, little questionable, but more understandable, especially if you believe in the guy and everything. And Trey Lance seems to look as advertised. So everything seems to go
pick, but
they probably did.
Yeah.
But if you go through the interesting thing to me about the entire Pitts situation is I don't think McVay seemed to have the understanding of Kyle and Jimmy's relationship. If you look at throughout the podcast, I don't think McVay looks at Kyle and Jimmy as him and Goff. I think McVay was like, ooh, you have Jimmy. Like, I like Jimmy. Like, Jimmy's fine, you know? He was like, you can win with that guy. And so I was trying to put together, why would McVay feel that way about Jimmy? And I really think it's 2 things that with Jimmy. One, if you look at this particular podcast, Peter Schrager said when he asked McVay what he looks for in a quarterback, he said it all goes beyond the film. I look at how he reacts to negative plays and negative drives, his facial expressions on the sideline and his body language. Jimmy Garoppolo is the body language king. He never has positive body language. He never has negative body language. It's the same even keel, blank. He's always aware of himself, never sees red like Mike McGlinchey trying to headbutt after the Rams game and saying still here, or, you know, Trent Williams punching Richard Sherman in the face after their wild card game. He's always in control of himself and everything. And then the second thing is, if you go back to McVay, there was an article, if you remember, this is at the beginning of 2019. Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, and Kyle Shanahan were interviewed by ESPN, and they talked about a variety of things, like who's the toughest defensive coordinator faced. They all said Vic Fangio. They all were asked what you look for in a quarterback. LaFleur said he likes natural throwers. McVay said you have to be able to throw off platform within the pocket with all types of arm slots. which is
That's
something
not
Jared
Goff.
Goff cannot do at all.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo, that's one of his biggest strengths. He throws really well without his feet set,
100%.
especially on third down within the pocket. So
Yeah.
I think that's why maybe McVay was a little bit higher. But I thought that entire ordeal and him saying the Pits was all interesting because of that. I don't think McVay felt about Jimmy the way Kyle might feel about Jimmy. I mean, he's flirted with every quarterback available. So
Also, McVay's lost his last 3 games to Jimmy.
he also lost the game to Nick Mullins.
True, but you gotta be respectful when you're 0 for your last 3. You better just tip your cap, not talk crap. So there might be part of that,
Right?
But yeah, he seemed oblivious to the fact that Kyle allegedly can't really stand Jimmy.
Or he seemed Blake.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Vish on this one. Like, the whole thought of Kyle Pitts was a possibility. I think in no world they would have actually taken him. I think the earliest they would have taken him is if they traded to like pick 6 or pick 5 and their first 4 or 5 quarterbacks were gone, then they would take him. I think they was quarterback all the way. I mean, I understand the thought
I don't think
process.
Jed would let it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I get the thought process, like he's that good and stuff, but I realistically don't think in any world they would have taken Kyle Pitts. Like, against what my own thinking, like what I liked about what was said with Shanahan is he doesn't care what the outside thinks about what he's doing internally. And I thought that was awesome. Like, if people want to rag on his decisions, like, he doesn't care. He doesn't let the media affect his choices. So, like, maybe that's a possibility as to why Kyle Pitts, but overall, I think they were going quarterback all the way. If they got to pick 6 somehow and their top 5 quarterbacks were gone, yeah, they'd take him. But I just don't think in any plausible, realistic scenario they trade 2 future firsts to get a tight end. I just don't see it happening.
Grant, go ahead.
I just think people, maybe even I underestimated how much Kyle Shanahan wants to break up with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over.
So
take your stuff, go back, take it home. Yeah, I don't want you.
Here's what I will say. Because, I mean, the messaging's been consistent from the 49ers that they needed to find a starting quarterback this offseason. They did find one with Trey Lance. And I think it's clear with Jimmy Garoppolo's play and what Kyle Shanahan talked about earlier in that podcast we're going to talk about the Niners and what he said about that job a bit later. But he talked about how he had seen his dad struggle once Elway was gone. And in Washington, when you didn't have that quarterback, and he didn't want to take a head coaching job where he was going to screw himself without that quarterback. That's why even though he has an okay starting quarterback in Garoppolo, he's not okay with an okay starting quarterback. He wants one of those guys. That's why he's flirting.
He's probably pretty envious of Matt LaFleur right now, right?
Right. And of course he is. Of course he is.
We got Jordan Love.
True. No, but what I really wanted to say was that in regards to the Pitts, what I'm glad about, and I think this is his MO, you don't leave any stone unturned. And I did think relative to the rest of this draft, maybe Trevor Lawrence is the only other player. Pitts was so generational. He checked every athletic box. He checked every production box. He checked every single box that you needed to check for a football player at his position, that you had to at least talk about it. Like, this is a generational player we're passing on. Yeah, we traded up. Yeah, we need a quarterback, but you're passing on, the one guy in this draft, like the Myles Garrett of this draft, Nick Bosa of this draft, that one guy that everybody agrees is the one guy in this draft. So I get that you had the conversation. I'm glad that they did at least say that, or Kyle seemed to indicate, like, we had this conversation because, you're passing on a guy that everybody perceives to be generational. I mean, Sean McVay was candidly talking about him. Like, you don't hear coaches talk about another team's player who's already been drafted candidly in a draft process. Like, pretty generational. I thought you would consider it. Yeah.
And he could just be a terrific replacement for Julio Jones. I mean, who's going to have more yards this year, Julio Jones or Kyle Pitts? We'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.